More than 180 Rohingya refugees from Bangladesh have landed in Indonesia in boats. The group arrived in Aceh in northern Indonesia, purportedly from refugee camps in Bangladesh. Now, last year, more than 500 Rohingya landed in Aceh, escaping overcrowding and violence in their camps. That's where up to 1 million of this persecuted community have been housed since fleeing what's been called genocide in Myanmar. But now they have a new enemy, hunger. Aid organizations have had to slash food budgets for the refugees due to funding shortfalls. In the refugee camps in Bangladesh, that has had a devastating impact.
The fear of hunger is growing in Cox's Bazar camps. Since early March, the World Food Programme has been forced to reduce food aid to over 1 million refugees here due to a funding shortage. Hamida already struggles to feed her kids. Now she worries things will only get worse.
I'm not getting any fish, meat, or salt now. My kids are not getting fruit to eat. We used to have these things.
Hamida's 2 sons have food today, but it's not enough. And they're not alone. Nearly 1 in 8 Rohingya children is acutely malnourished. The mothers suffer too. Some 40% of pregnant and breastfeeding women are anemic. And while the refugee camps have limited healthcare services, they have also seen their funding dry up in recent years.
Rohingya kids come to us with moderate and severe malnutrition. We identify them through screening. The lack of healthy food is causing the malnutrition among them. These kids just aren't getting vegetables, fish, meats, and fruit.
The cuts to food aid have been coupled with an increase in violence in the refugee camps. Human rights activists fear that security will be further destabilized.
The food aid cut by the WFP is inhumane and disrespectful to Rohingya refugees. Drug trafficking, human trafficking, and other forms of crimes like murder, banditry, and extortion could increase in the camps as a result.
Lawlessness has already taken its toll on the refugees. Bangladeshi investigators say that the massive fire that left thousands of refugees homeless earlier this month was carried out by criminal gangs trying to establish supremacy in the camps. For Hamida, fire is just one more problem that she must bear as a refugee.
We live in fear in the camp. We fear that our tents could be set on fire. We have gas stoves inside our tents, which could also cause a fire. We fear somebody could set fires on purpose. Beatings and killings have also been taking place here. But what can we do about it? Where can we go with the small kids?
The choices are stark. Bangladesh has been negotiating with Myanmar for refugee repatriation, but the 2 past attempts failed. Most refugees fear more for their safety back home, even more than they fear the dangers of the camps.
And joining me now for more is Dr. Ambia Parveen. She's a doctor who works in the Rohingya camps in Bangladesh and co-founded the organization Rohingya Medics. Dr. Parveen, the World Food Programme has had to slash its food budget for the Rohingya owing to huge funding shortfalls. How is this impacting Rohingya refugees in the camps in Bangladesh?
Thank you for having me. Since 2017, there are more than 1 million Rohingyas taking shelters in the refugee camps of Bangladesh. Many things have been happening towards the Rohingyas, but mainly on the negative sides, like massive fire exposure or incidents, and then the reducing of the food vouchers, the increasing of the hostility among the hostile community, and which has makes these Rohingya more vulnerable towards the dehumanization process. reducing the food vouchers or food rations to the Rohingyas, one must not forget that these are the people who are exposed to every traumas, who have been neglected from every basic rights. And once they land up in the refugee camps, there were always also a lack of human rights, basic human rights, and plus with the food rations, whatever they were getting, it was not enough for their medically and mentally stability. And we must also not forget that these 65% women and the children in the refugee camps, they are the children who are under 5 years of age with the malnourished. Right. They are pregnant women who are anemic.
Just on that point, how are refugees coping with having less food on a day-to-day basis? What is the impact this is happening having on their lives?
As I've said, that, this impact will be on every Rohingyas, mentally, medically, and therefore their livelihood. They were already struggling with the less nutritious food that they were getting, the same food that they were eating, the same food every day, and also with the less caloric. So these are vulnerable people are exposed to every stress factors. They have been medically exposed to the immunity. Their immunity is already weak, and they're exposed to infectious diseases. To their chronic disease will be more unstable, and plus these impacts will also affect our youth to the crimes. Our children or our girls will be exposed to the crimes, the human trafficking, to the drug trafficking, and also this is a threat not only for our community but also local community, and it's also a global threat. Our children, our youth, our people will be engaged, right. And therefore, even you can see that the people are running away because there is no dignified life in the refugee camps.
A return to Myanmar has been touted as the long-term solution for Rohingya refugees who are in camps in Bangladesh. Now, Myanmar has agreed to take in some 1,000 refugees starting next month in a pilot project. Do you think that this will work?
One must not forget that these pilot projects or repatriation process have been always talked about it. And, in 2018, when there was a memorandum for the repatriation occurred, none of the Rohingyas were involved. It was between the Myanmar and the Bangladesh. Who is the broker of this repatriation is the Chinese. What kind of Chinese had the interest? Why the Myanmar government, the military regime is talking about the repatriation? Because in next month, on 24th of April, the case had been filed against the military regime of Myanmar in ICJ. They have to, filed by the Gambia, they have to show to the ICJ, to the justice, that the allegations made by the Gambia and the ICJ level that was incorrect, and they did not violate any genocidal conventions, and plus that the military regime of Myanmar is the best stable government to help for the stability of the Myanmar, of the public, of the civilians, and as well as for the Rohingyas. And one must also not forget that in this repatriation process, the Rakhines, our brothers and sisters who are living nearby in the Rakhine state, they never wanted us. They never called us as Rohingyas. And NUG statements have been releasing that they will give us the rights, but there was no concrete help from the NUG, the civil government of Myanmar.
That was Dr. Ambia Parveen, co-founder of the organization Rohingya Medics, speaking to me earlier.